Did you bring some fish?
That is quite logical, Captain.
Where shall I strike?
Test your might. Test your might.
Get it out! Get it out!
Test your might. Test your might.
Your mother was a murderer! You smell like a leopard! You are not prepared.
Hello and welcome, everybody. Happy New Year to you all. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas or festive period, and glad to have you back listening to the Geek Card, show 117. We are back in 2019, and we welcome all card-carrying geeks within the sound of our voice. I am, of course, Razerbug, and with me is my wonderful co-host, Robbie Glow.
Hello, Mr. Razerbug.
Hello there. It's not
How are you? What's
good.
going on? What's new?
I'm feeling good. I started the working back at work and back in January, feeling absolutely bloody miserable. But I'm feeling much better. I'm happier, healthier. I'm getting back into the gym. I'm doing all good stuff. I've got plans for the future. Lots of adulting.
Oh my
Buy a
God.
house and all that sort of thing. So
Oh my God.
yes, it's
The year of the Razorбug.
indeed.
The bloody hell. Adulting? No,
Adulting,
I'm good.
yes. Oh,
I'm good.
Terrible.
I don't want to do that yet.
but
I'm nearly 30 and I'm still like, I don't want to do that yet. Bloody hell.
I'm approaching mid-30s and realizing, oh, no, we actually have to act like grown-ups.
Oh, maybe we're not invincible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get that reality soon, I'm sure. But did you have a fantastic Christmas?
I had a very lovely Christmas, thank you. Yes, it was a sort of, I managed to take sort of 3 weeks off. So I had a week off work, then I had a week for Christmas stuff, and then we had a week between Christmas and New Year, and going back. So I had a good recharge of the batteries. Had fun throwing the diet out the window and eating and drinking whatever I liked. And yes, had a very good time, a very lovely New Year as well with a small group of friends, and we watched the fireworks over London. So it was all good stuff.
Oh, the controversial fireworks, I believe.
Yeah, well, we couldn't see that because we couldn't. Where we were was south of the river. We couldn't see the Millennium Eye or the colours it was lit up to. So we didn't really get any of that. We just saw some pretty bangs. But there we go. How about you, Robbie? What was your Christmas like?
It was full of ill for other people.
Oh dear!
I had basically over Christmas, my parents were both quite ill, and I was basically in the I've got to look after everything mode, and so I didn't really have Christmas until 2 days later.
So you were the Robbie that saved Christmas.
I was more the Robbie that made sure that, like, you know, other people outside of our house didn't get sick. So yeah, it was pretty all right. I got a Switch.
Ooh.
I was very excited about that. That was kind of a surprise that I had no idea about.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I've been playing lots and lots of Super Smash Brothers because it's awesome and fun.
I'm jealous.
And portable.
We got a lot of Amazon vouchers for Christmas from
buy a
parents
Switch.
that didn't know what to get us. So yeah,
Buy a Switch.
Yeah, we are tempted. Are you playing Pokemon on the Switch?
Yes, I am. I'm playing the Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, and I have my Eevee has an adorable little sailor's hat on.
So how much do you need to be playing Pokemon Go to be able to play Pokemon Let's Go at its most bestest?
Well, for Pokemon Go on the phone,
yeah.
Well, basically, you get to I think it's the 6th city in the Nintendo Switch game, and then there's basically a transfer system where you can. It's only one way from your mobile game to your Switch, but you can transfer I think it's up to 20 at a time into the Switch, and then you go and catch them in the park, like the Safari Zone. used to be
Hmm.
in the game. But you don't. If you've caught a Pokemon in the mobile game, then you're pretty much done enough because it's an optional thing.
Oh right, okay. So it's not the two games aren't tied in together then.
They're tied in together in the way that, like, if you want to get some Pokemon that you might not be able to get on the version of the game you've got on the Switch,
Okay.
then you can, and you pretty much can catch, apart from the regional exclusives, obviously, but you can get all of the regional variants from Pokemon Go on the mobile in the game anyway.
Okay.
But you can't obviously transfer the regional ones to the mobile one, so it's only a one-way transfer thing.
Right, so it's just a little bit of extra enjoyment from the phone. It's not the two games are sort of symbiotically linked. You've got to be playing both.
No, it's a optional thing that's quite well done actually, and it's interesting, and you know it's mostly focused on this is a demonstration of what the Switch can do for a Pokemon game, and they're tying it into a franchise that they've already got that's out on this sort of generation platform. And yeah, like it's not a traditional Pokemon game in the sense of you have to battle Pokemon and then you catch weakened ones. It's all about the throwing of the Pokeball, like in the Pokemon Go game.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just find a Pokemon and you feed the items to it that you have to try and make it easier to catch, and then you throw a Pokeball at it. Which from my understanding of the next generation of Pokemon game that's coming on the Nintendo Switch sometime this year, that's probably going back to the old style of have your Pokemon fight and then you catch the weakened one.
I think I prefer that. I think I definitely I'm old school in that respect. I liked the original style.
I mean, I mainly got the Pokemon Let's Go game came with the Switch when I got it, so it was pretty much, from what I understand, it was buy the Switch, get a selection of, I think it was 6 games. One of the games you can get for $10. So
right.
The Pokemon game was the most expensive one, so I figured that's what happened.
Fair enough.
And it happened to be a game that I wanted, so it was fine with me. So yeah, but Smash Brothers is amazing at the minute, actually.
Oh, I have very fond memories of Smash Brothers on the 64 and the GameCube.
Yeah, it's very much it's sort of like the GameCube game in respects to that. It's just absolute madness, but with about 60 odd characters.
Yeah.
And 8 at a go, which is even more fun.
Oh, 8 at a go. Wow, okay, that sounds good.
Yeah. It's a bit insane to kind of look at it when you're in portable mode on the Switch. But when you've got it on a big TV, like I did over in New Year when I took the Switch to my friend's house for New Year, we played 8-player Smash on it on a 40-inch TV, and it was all glorious and HD and lovely. And I was like, this is what I've always wanted.
Can you play with 8 people over the internet as well?
You can, but there's a thing that where, like on Microsoft with the Xbox, there's sort of like a online service you pay for, but it's not something stupid like £40 for 6 months or whatever, like it is on the Xbox. It's something like £2 or something a month. So you have the option to buy into an online system, and with that, I haven't got it, but when you get it, you get basically an online emulator of NES games.
All right.
So you get access to lots and lots of old school Nintendo games to play with your online subscription. So it's sort of like you're paying for that as opposed to the online functionality.
That seems reasonable. The price doesn't seem to be too prohibitive. So it's,
yeah.
Did you have to buy a controller to use with the with Smash Bros, or did you find the Joy-Cons?
You can use the Joy-Cons, but I had some GameCube controllers lying around, so I bought a third-party adapter. That's a USB to like a GameCube proprietary to USB, because there's 3 USB ports on the Switch dock.
Oh, that's cool, because it's pretty easy to pick up a second-hand GameCube.
You can buy for I think it only works out at about £20 more, but when you buy Smash, I didn't realize this at the time, but when you buy Smash, the Ultimate Edition, you get a GameCube controller with the Smash symbol, an official one, and you get the 4-way adapter with it, the official one for £20 more, which would be worth having more so than buying it third party. But I already had the GameCube controllers, and I bought. I found in Argos. Which how do I explain Argos to American people? You go to it and there's a catalog and there's a number you type in for the item you want, and if the Argos you're standing in has it, you can order it.
Yes, and every so often the Horde of the Alliance raid it.
Yeah, quite. And it was just that's throwing me off. It's basically Amazon, but in person is how I always used to refer to it when Amazon came out. Yeah,
that's a pretty good description.
But they had a New Year sale on sort of third party, but they're very well respected third party controllers that are like a Pro controller, which was like £17. It was a wired one, but it was worth having. So I bought 2. So I had my 3 GameCube controllers I kept. Thankfully, I kept them all these years. 2 Pro controllers and the Joy-Cons, and then someone else bought some GameCube controllers with them. So there was a total of 8 we could have at one go, and it was pretty intense. But
nice.
Good times. Very, very good party game.
Yeah. We got up to much wowage over the festive period, or after the festive period, I suppose.
Yeah, we had sort of a couple of days off over the actual Christmas itself, but we've been doing WoW on and off every other day, I think.
Yep, we've got everything unlocked now. All of our group have got Siege and King's Row, whatever it's called.
King's Rest, yeah.
Yep, for all that it's worth, unlocked.
We had the Dark Irons unlocked, so we actually did that as well. I just remembered.
Yes, that's true. We've got our Dark Irons now. We're all leveling characters we've never played before and classes we've never played before. Well, we are all except for Damurai, who's played everything and tried everything. So, although he's healing, which is something he's not done.
Which is something he's not used to. Yeah, so he's in a new role, as it were. I'm sort of playing a monk, which is a bit of everything again, like a druid. Except the only role that I've been randomly assigned when we've been doing Dungeon Finder is DPS. So,
yes, you're very much doing what my main is, which is just turn up and see what people need. And the RNG has currently thrown our more melee DPS like used to person now in as the tank. So they're getting used to that role, and like we say, we're doing quite well though, because we've been doing just dungeon leveling, and we managed to do about 5 levels in about 4 dungeons in one night. So it was with all the heirlooms and everything, it was good. It was a pretty good romp.
Yeah, and it was quite fun also seeing you with your rogue.
Trying to understand how to even rogue, bro.
Exactly. It was a good time, and I'm quite enjoying it. And we've also been keeping up with raiding, which again, that's as we're recording, we're having a raid in a couple of hours. We've actually started doing the first couple of bosses again, but on heroic now, which is interesting because it's like, oh, we kind of know this fight, and then there's oh wait, what's that coming through the floor? Oh, okay.
That was a Franz Ferdinand song, wasn't it?
Yeah, is it? It probably is.
No, never mind.
No, it's no. We're not going down this road. What? I don't even know what number boss we're on now. On normal, we're about to go into our 6th boss. Out of the 8 in the raid. So I think we're doing the heroic first 2. Well, the first boss definitely on heroic every week to see if anyone can get an item upgrade.
Yeah, that's the slight problem, is that we're now getting to the point where where we're getting better items from Mythic Pluses than we are getting from the first week of the first tier of raids. It's I think most of us are like 360 to 370 for almost all of our gear slots, and some 380s and 390s are creeping in there. So
no, I don't think anyone's had in our group that we know of has had a 400 yet.
Are you still waiting for your offhand?
Oh my god, the fucking offhand. Yeah, like the RNG is not kind.
Yeah, my two-hand weapon for my healing and ret spec is six. No, three. What is it?
360.
355. So it's like the lowest of all of the gear I've got. For two of my specs, I have to use a 355. So I'm really hoping to get some sort of improvement on that.
Yeah, I've just checked what we're doing tonight for raid, and we're doing the donut boss,
The donut boss.
which is Vecness, and we're doing Zol, which we've not managed to actually finish Zol on normal yet.
Zol's the blood one, isn't it?
No, Zol's the one downstairs with all the people in the circle,
right.
and then he pushes us off and kills us.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not having fun with that one yet. But we got most of them on normal on farm now.
Yeah.
The first 5 pretty much are on farm, which is good. But we're trying to progress on our Mythic progression. And I don't know whether it's because we started Mythic in Legion quite late, so it seemed a lot easier to get to a higher level. But we're sort of stuck in the 5 and 6 number, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're even getting to that level like consistently. We've had a few runs at 5s, but we haven't got them in the time, I don't think. We tend to be more sort of solidly getting the 3s and 4s out of the way, and then I was wondering if it's because we came into raiding late in not raiding Mythic Plus late in Legion. Because I think if I remember rightly, I had trouble getting my computer to work with WoW, so I bought a new computer. And you guys had already been max level and quite well geared, while me and my partner sort of joined you and we built our 5-man team. I don't know if it's because you guys out-geared a lot of the content when we first started, or if it was just a different thing, because this expansion feels like it's got a lot more gimmick fights in it.
Yeah,
it
seems a lot more complex as well.
Yeah, the trash seems to have... This is a weird opinion, but it feels like it cheats. This is the first expansion I've seen where there are some mechanics that you just can't avoid or silence or stun or even run out of. There's some things that just go off too quickly, and there's no amount of beating the tactic. You've just got to either heal through it or mitigate through it. It's like it almost feels like it doesn't really reward clever use of all of your abilities. It just rewards some people being bloody hard and some people having a lot of healing that they can throughput. The island things being especially guilty of that. And I think we've seen some things like Temple of Snex has been, or as it's affectionately known in our group, Temple of Fuck No, has been nerfed because that had a mechanic that was just infuriating and didn't really add any entertainment value to it. And I think there's a couple of others.
That was a definite gimmick.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of others that could do with not nerfing, but like just tweaking to get the balance right, and especially with the time walking stuff. I think the time walking stuff is really out of whack. I mean, we're doing content that we're going into in time walking, but we're doing them for reals at the real level in some of our alts, and we're finding the runs with our alts at the actual level is far more easy than doing the same thing when we've been scaled down to that level.
Yeah,
which it feels like the two should be much closer than they are.
I don't know, because especially in the Island expeditions, when you've been sort of in the quote-unquote tank role, because of course you don't really need roles in that, you just need coordination and stuff like that. There's some mobs where it's like there's a cone effect going on, you're like, okay, I'll get out of that, and it's like, oh, but the cone effect goes off far too quick to get out of it. Right. So apart from blinking, which I don't have as a priest, or having Cavalier, again, I don't have that as a priest. It's a bit sort of like, so I'm fucked then. I can't mitigate through this, and I'm a clothy, so I'm going to get hit in the face really hard with that. So, and also, like, I know you mentioned a couple of times it's a bit like, oh, so the AI gets to play a class that doesn't exist. Well, fuck you. And
yes, yeah. There's a lot of the Island expeditions where there's like mages who throw fireballs and then heal people, and paladins who have like a fire burst thing. It's like since when did they ever have that? Like,
Yeah, and it's sort of like a canonical thing, like, Blood Elves can play Sunstriders, and that's like sort of Fire Mage mixed with a Paladin. It's like, oh, but we can't.
Yeah, but then there's also interesting things in like you've got the goblins that throw out like turrets that heal and do damage, and I'm like, so are they testing this class for future release? Is this what are we seeing them sort of quietly playtest ideas that don't necessarily have, like, some of them are just going to be like, no, that just really didn't work, and we'll patch it out in the next not expansion, next release, or whereas others, they might be like, well, this actually kind of works quite well, let's put it into our alpha environments and see if we can turn it into a player class. That's my theory of that one. But so on a non-WoW stuff, how is your D&D going? Did that go on over the week? We had a couple of sessions. My monk has been slowly getting everyone drunk, which is fun.
And also doing acrobatics to the top of roofs and going, you've got dust there, you might want to clean that, and all the stupid things like that. But mostly he's been standing and being a big tanky tank, because apparently I've got some of the highest hit points in our group and I didn't even realise. So I've just been sort of trying to distract the bosses, and while doing defensive stance, and being like, oh, you get disadvantage on a roll, haha, so now you don't hit me.
Cool.
Standard D&D things. But one of my friends is sort of hosting a 9-player battle royale PvP thing at the end of the month, which I'm a bit like, oh god, how do I prepare for that? So I've decided between two. So I'm either going to be a life cleric and just be a massive tank that can just keep healing myself and annoy everyone, which is just going to certainly get me killed, right? The first one is like, oh, I'll get the tank, go. Or it's going to be some form of rogue, because then it's a bit more like, oh, you get disadvantage because I can just, sneak attack everything.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of going more towards the rogue.
Okay.
Only problem is that I've never played a rogue in D&D.
I'm just trying to think if I have. No, I don't think I ever have. I've GM'd for rogues, and they hit like a truck if they.
Yeah, because like you can get a sneak attack with 5d6, and I'm like,
exactly.
that's a big lot of damage if I can get that to go, and I can just throw daggers at people and crossbows and things like that. So I'm leaning more towards a half elf rogue.
Nice.
So I'll see how that goes. I have a tab open in D&D Beyond at the minute, just sort of playing around with it before I write it down on a sheet, and seeing what I can come up with. So yeah, see how that goes. But I think that's in 3 weeks, I think. So that's going to be 5 hours of sheer, oh my god, what the fuck's going on? And probably dying extremely quickly, but having a good time doing it. So yeah. How about you?
So we've been progressing with our Waterdeep campaign. We had to find a talking horse this time around, who one of our players announced, oh, I bet it's a werehorse. To which all of the other characters were like, what is even a werehorse? Like, where have you got that from? That sounds ridiculous. And out of character as well, the players were mocking him at table. Yeah, it turned out to be a werehorse. Woman that turns into a horse. Yeah, of course it was. So yes, we had that adventure. We got given as a reward for. So we use Obsidian Portal as a website for running the sort of ancillary background stuff of your games. It's like a sort of wiki effect. Basically, you've got the places and the objects and the characters, and what you've got also is a sort of log post thing, like a adventure log, it's called. And because several members of the groups are professional writers, or actors, or both, there's quite a lot of people want to do some storytelling around the events of the game that are sort of like overnight while people were sleeping, or in a letter to someone else who's not part of the campaign, or keeping a journal or whatever. And it's basically a way for you to do some creative writing with the characters that you're playing with. And the GM is usually sort of house rules for our group. We usually reward XP for that. Just sort of small amounts, like 50 XP or 80 XP or whatever. And it's, it encourages people to write, interesting fiction, and also means that they, level up a bit quicker. Now, the problem with this time is that we're running off of a pre-made campaign, so it doesn't really expect you to level up quicker than it gives you the opportunity to in game. So as a result of that, the GM was having to find some other ways that they could reward us for this creative writing. And last session, the GM just said, "Oh, well, what we'll do is we'll roll up a random magic item from the table for anyone who's contributed to the wiki so far." And so everyone rolled their things, and someone got like a cloak of protection, and someone got an amulet of detecting thoughts, and someone else got a circlet that they wear on their head that can fire scorching rays. And I was thinking, wow, there's some really awesome items here. And I rolled, and I got slippers of spider climbing, and I thought, oh, that's a bit, not really. That's a bit situational, not really super useful. No, couldn't have been further wrong. So the other day was sort of our first official session back after the Christmas break, and tracking down this werehorse, we stumble into a trap, and the trap is a big spherical rotating room, and it's like, okay, this is really interesting because some people at the table were much better at visualizing 3D completely imaginary scenes and simulating in their own heads laws of physics and how things would move around and that sort of thing. Others were like, they were trying to work out ways of drawing it out on paper so they could visualize it. So that led to a bit of mathematical debate, but it also meant that, like, when we actually did get the fight kicked off, my character was like, oh, so the floor's moving. Fine, I'll just go up the walls then. So I just like completely negated the mechanics of this dungeon with these slippers. So as a result, like we then decided that, oh, this is a really useful utility. So if we were bundling down a corridor that was only big enough for single file travel, so I walked up onto the ceiling, pressed myself flat against it Spider-Man style, and just crawled along the top so that I was able to move through the group when we got into combat without having to, defer actions until we could all move out of each other's way. And so actually it's turned into really quite useful. But it has given rise to the term SpiderPriest amongst our group.
Oh, good time.
So,
good time.
Yes. It was very interesting suddenly having the ability in combat to be on different planes of latitude. So yeah, very good fun.
That must be real. That also must be a real pain. Sorry, that must be a real pain for the DM going like, oh, for fuck's sake, the priest is up the fucking wall again. Like,
yes, she did at one point roll her eyes and says, "Are you ever going to walk on the floor again?"
It's like, nope. Don't plan
it's
on
like, oh, this floor might have traps. Oh, right, okay. Well, I'll walk along the ceiling, and if I spot any traps, I'll trigger them for the people who are stuck on the floor, and there we go.
Oh dear.
So, yeah.
That can't end well.
Yeah. I wonder how long it's going to be before she finds a way of removing the slippers from me. But we'll see.
Nice.
So the only other sort of super geeky things I did over the holiday period was I caught up on Flash and Arrow and Supergirl, which are all excellent, by the way. Arrow being slightly weaker of those three, but those are all good. And episode 9 of the current seasons of those shows crossover into an Elseworlds event. Now, for those of you who don't know, Elseworlds was an imprint of DC Comics probably 10 or so years ago now, where they basically reimagined their characters in different situations. So, for example, Red Sun saw Superman land in Soviet Russia and being brought up by the communists rather than by the Midwest America. There was other ones as well that saw Wonder Woman fighting zombie Nazis. There was all sorts of these strange and really interesting stories in some cases. And in this one, they've used it as a vehicle for their annual crossover event. And I have to say, it's really, really good. I've only seen 2 of the episodes, and I'm not going to go into any spoilers other than like stuff we've seen in the trailers. But it's fantastic. It's really re-energized the show. Like, I know my partner has not been enjoying Arrow this year, and she's not been enjoying some of the other stuff as much. Like, it's felt a bit draggy at times. But she was, we only meant to watch one episode, like one a week sort of thing, and we ended up back-to-backing 2 episodes just because we were so caught up in it. We probably would have watched all 3 if it hadn't been for the fact it was getting very late at night. So yeah, we're really enjoying the crossover event, and we've seen the reveal of, and this is not a spoiler because it's been in the press and in the trailers. We've seen the reveal of Batwoman, and she is absolutely fantastic. She's played by. I've no hope of remembering the actress's name because I've only seen her in sort of trailers for other things. But I know she's been in the most recent, I think, season of Orange is the New Black.
Oh, okay.
She's an absolute badass and really good actress from what I've seen sort of in the clips and things I've seen of her. And she is really, really good in this as Batwoman. There's a fantastic touching moment between her and Supergirl. It's just really like sort of everything that Batman versus Superman wasn't. So yeah, I'm really enjoying the crossover event. So if you haven't been keeping up with the Arrowverse CW stuff, I really recommend it. They're laying down things for televised version of some of the biggest events of DC Comics' comic history. I won't go any further than that, but it's, you know, like, could you imagine even 10 years ago, but certainly 20 years ago, like if someone had told me they were going to take one of the biggest events of comic book history from the 80s and they were going to turn it into live action with, you know, great special effects, great actors, really, you know, good costumes that didn't apologize for the fact they looked a bit silly. I would have said, you know, that's never in a million years going to happen. Even when the first X-Men film came out, you know, if someone had told me we were going to get The Flash and Firestorm and Kid Flash and, you know, Atom and people like that flying around on TV every week, I would have said, you know, no, you're crazy. That we'll only do these sort of dark and brooding, black leather clad sort of things.
So all good fun.
So yes,
all good fun.
It's all good fun. It is all good fun. That's exactly it. So we're just going to touch on a couple of topics this week because we have rambled on a bit. But Robbie, you've got your eyes on something shiny.
I do, and I wish I had disposable income. So I've been rocking a GTX 1060 for 3 years now. Nice. In my current rig, and you know, it's holding up well. It plays well nicely, but I had the unfortunate thing after the last patch of having my recommended at, like, you know, you get the slider between 1 and 10.
Yeah.
My recommended is now at 5, and I'm sad. So I was looking into how I can sort that out, and the obvious quick way is just to get a new graphics card. So I was looking at some cheaper 1080s that are in a sale and all that, and I thought, no, you know what? I'm going to see if there's a new release coming soon. It just turns out that NVIDIA are releasing their next sort of line of graphics cards. They're now called RTXs. Yeah, and I thought I would just link to the mid-range RTX 2060, which is the sort of the replacement, as it were, for the 1060. Right. So I just wanted to see what you thought of it. So let's go down to. Oh yeah, so for example, some of the specs. Yes, let's go with the video memory and such. So the base model, which is the 2060 FE, is it's 6 gigs of GDDR6 video memory, which to me sounds insane already. Yeah. Right? Like the fact that we're on DDR6 for graphics now, and it's also that's the base one, and with the one up from that, it's an 8 gig GDDR6, which I thought, okay, that's pretty good. And then it's got a boost clock speed of 1680 megahertz, which is wow, you know, it's pretty good compared to some of the older things, it's weird because if you look at the spec sheet, some of it's not quite right. So, and also some of it's not available. But the GTX 1060 had a 1780 clock speed, right?
1708, I think, actually.
1708 clock speed, but that one wasn't able to be boosted.
Yeah.
So this is the base. So when it says it's a 1680 on the 2060, it's the lowest boost because it's adjustable. Right.
It's interesting when you compare it to like the comparable AMD chips, and they're like 1400. They're considerably slower.
Yeah, but then you look at things like the memory speed on the AMD chip. When the new 2060 has 14 GBps
Gigabits per
and
second, I'm assuming.
yes, and then you look at the AMD, and I don't know if this is because the architecture is really different, but it goes down to a 1.6.
Yeah, that's a massive difference. I don't know, like you say, I don't know how much that directly affects performance, but
I mean, I'm
interestingly,
guessing it's to do with the stream processing, because the AMD one has over double the NVIDIA card. So I'm not sure if it's to do with the chipset design, because it's not really explicitly said here.
It does use very different architecture, though. I mean, the video memory is, for the AMD is listed as 8 gigabytes of HBM2, and I have to confess, I'm not really familiar with that type of memory.
No, because it's graphics memory is extremely weird in the sense that it's not always directly comparable. So when it says 8 gigs of one type towards an 8 gigs of another type, it doesn't react the same when you put it in a system.
Yeah.
It's to do with the demand and the load of what is needed at that time. So when it says something it says equipped with 6 gig of the latest 14 Gbps GDDR6 video memory, and it has 50% more CUDA CUDA cores.
CUDA cores.
CUDA.
Yeah,
I assumed it was SUDA because it's a GIF versus GIF thing.
We actually work. So the industry I work in media industry, we actually work with a lot of machine learning and computer vision science. So I regularly have to get used to very high power performance video cards, not for gaming or anything like that, but for sort of machine learning and neural infrastructure stuff. And at the moment, I'm actually building a $5,000 workstation around the Titan 5.
Oh, nice!
It's 12 gig of graphics RAM, but that actually itself is HBM2. So interesting to see if that's this HBM2 is a more advanced version than GDDR. So yeah, it'll be fantastic to see how this thing performs. I mean, the fastest machine I've used for a day-to-day thing is the 1080 that's in my current gaming rig. So, if you do end up getting the 2060, I'd be, what are we calling it? 2060? Yeah, I guess it must be. If you do end up getting it, I'd be very interested to see how it...
I'm just going with RTX 60 because it's getting confusing because it's a different... Yeah. So, for some examples of the performance, they've got some game... images of the performance charts with Shadow of Tomb Raider and Warhammer 2 at various spec levels. So, because of course, I mean, I've ever used like 1080 gaming, but of course, this is getting into the generation where it's now 4K and 8K. So I'm looking at the performances of the various cards to compare. So with Shadow of Tomb Raider at the 1080, and it's got average FPS, right? My GTX 1060 is a 53, which is one of the lowest on the chart, right? And then it would go to the RTX 2060, which is 90, which is an insane difference. But then you look at the difference in the average and the minimum frames, and it seems like with the old architecture, there was less of a difference between the minimum and the average. There was less of a drop. But if you look at the two bars, you have the orangey bar below the green or red number. Yeah. So the green number is the average FPS and then the orange one below it is the minimum that it had during the test. So if you compare the RTX 2060 at the top compared to, say, the AMD with the different architecture, it's not that different.
So it's just doing the same thing in a different way, but comparable.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can that's with a 1080 game though. And if you go to a 20, God, I can't believe we're having to get to these numbers now. 2160 pixel, and you look at the RTX versus the Vega 56 again, it's comparable again. So I don't know whether they've done something with the architecture, which means they don't need to have as strong of a boost clock.
They're doing the same thing more efficiently rather than just throwing big numbers at it.
It seems to be, but there's also I don't know if you're familiar with 3D Mark testing. So it seems that the AMD scores a lot higher on average.
That's interesting, because I know that a lot of the stuff that is done with CUDA is about the 3D NVIDIA leading the sort of standard for 2D and 3D computer vision stuff. So I would have thought that they would have been ahead of the curve there. But
it's weird though, because if you look at the 3D market, for some tests, it's actually the RTXs are better than, but on average, it seems to be that's not the case. But if you look at the difference between the temperatures, the minimum temperature on the RTXs are a lot lower than the AMD. But they're also, the maximum temperatures are higher. So they have a wider range of temperatures, so they're better at dissipating when they need to. While as the AMD is averagely better over a longer period of time. So it seems to me that AMD have got something either very clever up their sleeves, or it's just that they've managed to be average better.
Yeah, I think.
But I still would go with an RTX because I'm in that NVIDIA life now.
I'm the same, because I work with them. I tend to just default to them rather than the AMDs. I did used to run an AMD in my last PC though, and it was absolutely fine. So, So that looks cool. The price tag's perhaps not, but that's kind of to be expected.
I don't know. I'm willing to save for it to be £50 more than what it's replacing, because the performance is so much
that's true.
more.
That's fair enough. I think we're actually getting out of the artificial bubble that was created a few months back, maybe a year ago.
With the Bitcoin.
Mining. Yeah, that really drove up the prices of cards, but I think they're coming back down again slowly now. So that's pretty good. So I don't know about you, but over the festive period, there was one news story that would not shift out of my recommended YouTube and my news feeds and all over Twitter, and everyone going mad about it. I think the sentiment has kind of switched the opposite way round in the last few weeks, which is something we'll come to. But there has been an awful lot of talk about the state of Activision Blizzard in the end of 2018 and 2019. Over 2018, we saw Mike Morhaime, we saw Chris Metzen, we saw, I think it was 4 or 5 of the original Blizzard guys, the people that really created that company that did things so much differently to a lot of the other gaming companies. They all departed for their own reasons, but a lot of people have been saying that Blizzard's got some problems. At the end of last year and beginning of this year, the Diablo mobile game stuff was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back, with everyone just taking a look and saying, this is just not the Blizzard we know. This is not the way they would have done things. Chris Metzen actually appeared at BlizzCon and asked a question, and I think a lot of people then started making the comments that his Blizzard is not the one we're seeing now, and how much things have changed. There's a lot of reports about cost cutting in the UK. We got the news that broke that Blizzard was paying severance packages for over 100 customer service staff in Ireland to leave the company. There are multiple reports of this. We've seen Activision's CFO departing to go and work for Netflix, and just recently Blizzard's has announced that they're leaving to go and work for Square. A lot of people are saying that Blizzard is in a bit of a bad way, that there's huge efforts to cut cut spending, so there's massive price cutting, which is meaning things like Heroes of the Dorm and the other Heroes of the Storm esports are being cut. They've just with no communication, they just announced that was it. It was gone. So there's a lot of negative press coming out of Blizzard at the moment, and it's really being hyped by YouTube creators, by people that write blogs about Blizzard's projects. A lot of people have jumped on the never-ending bandwagon of saying, "Oh, World of Warcraft is dying" and all this sort of thing. I've seen a lot of in-game chat, people complaining that there's fewer people playing, when actually, judging by how our auction house is going on our server, it's very, very busy and very, very active. So, it's like and then flipping this round, interestingly, some people have started doing analysis of it and saying, well, hang on a minute, this is actually not the negative that everyone's seeing. There's a to borrow a phrase from some good friends of ours, there's a team positive moment in this, because Heroes of the Storm was a reaction to the MOBA world, to League of Legends and Heroes of New Earth and that sort of thing. It was never actually sort of leading the genre. It never, it did a little bit of business, sure, but it was never sort of like their main thing. It was, some people could argue, it's the first sort of flop, which is a bit harsh. It's not really a flop. It's actually a very well done game that I enjoy, but it's the first sort of game that hasn't absolutely owned the industry it went into. Like Hearthstone, for example, came out into the same playing field that Magic the Gathering has dominated for years, and it blew it away. It's now the most played CCG in the market. Overwatch came out and actually created a new genre. It created the hero shooter, and it's become a very popular esport, and we'll go into a bit more about that in a minute. Obviously, World of Warcraft continues to be the only MMORPG that can run at this scale for 14 years. Other things like Wildcard and etc. have come and gone, unfortunately, because it's just difficult to compete in that market. So it's a bit hard saying that this is a end of the world, end of Blizzard, because things have changed a bit. They're still basically top of their game in sort of 4 out of 5 fields. And then the other thing is, everyone's jumping on this cost cutting at Blizzard, how it's changed the culture. They're just putting out mobile games for quick buck and that sort of thing. But then the CFO who's reportedly responsible for this cost cutting effort is Amrita Ayuja. I think that's how you pronounce the name. Sorry if I'm butchering that. But she's the one who's just announced that she's going to Square. So surely now that means we've got rid of that problem? Like, people are being negative about both sides of things, but actually, if you're negative about one, you surely have to see the other as a positive. I think
it's odd, isn't it?
I think there's a lot of people are just jumping on hype here. It's a bit strange. It's not helped either by the fact that Overwatch has just had this bizarrely toxic group of players. Like, there was I didn't read into it because, to be honest, I just took one look at the story and thought, you know what, I don't need that negativity. But apparently there was a gamer who there was a load of negative feedback because the pro gamer scene was seen as being sexist and anti-female gamers. But then that turned out to be the woman that the female gamer that they were hating on turned out to actually be a guy who'd been hiring girls to pose as him on voice chat while he played under other accounts. What? Like, I don't know what's going on there, and
that's a bit suspect, isn't it?
But Blizzard and Overwatch have actually banned thousands of accounts. I think something like 1,800 accounts or something similar for the basically the way they behave on voice chat or in game. Basically just any antisocial elements of their community they seem to be trying to manage. which I think is probably a good thing. The StarCraft 2 esports scene is generally, as far as I can tell, quite welcoming and tolerant of people, and doesn't tend to be too full of drama. So you can build a community from Blizzard games that doesn't react like that. But I think Overwatch being what it is, it has tapped into other genres that perhaps attract other play styles and mindsets and attitudes to other people. So what's your sort of take on this? Do you think Blizzard's in trouble, or is this just a way of getting clicks on YouTube videos?
I think that's more what it is. I think it's more of a commercial thing going on with some of the quote unquote problems. Because if you're talking about it, you're getting publicity.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of the things I really don't seem to understand. Like when people say, "Oh, there's not as many people playing WoW," like, okay, that might be true, but they've got ways of integrating different servers together because we have cross-realm. So it always has now felt more populated than it actually is in some places of the game.
Yeah, I don't think,
and that's done by design.
Yeah, I don't think you're never going to see numbers growing for a 14-year-old game, but at the same time, it's not really affecting
how you play it.
Yeah, I mean, some people might say it is, but then this is the reason they're bringing out WoW Classic. If you liked it better in the old days, then great, the old days are new again.
Yeah, I mean, we all when Activision first was on the scene with Blizzard, we were all a bit kind of like, oh god, what's going to happen now? And I don't want Call of Duty shoved down my throat on the Blizzard launcher, thanks.
Yes, that is a negative. Blizzard sort of peddling Call of Duty and Destiny. It's like, if I wanted either of those games, I would have gone and got them. I'm sure they're very good games, but I don't play them. I don't need them. It's the same with things like Overwatch and Heroes of the Storm and Diablo. Like I used to play Heroes of the Storm more than I do now. Overwatch and Diablo, just for whatever reason, I don't have as much interest in. So it would be quite nice to be able to remove those from the launcher, but this is just a cosmetic thing.
Yeah.
So interestingly, the next big thing from Blizzard is going to be the Warcraft 3 remastered, and people have been saying, tying into the WoW thing, people are saying, well, you can't, like there's rumors of Warcraft 4 is going to be the next big thing, and the Warcraft 3 remastered engine would be a way of building a Warcraft 4. The big problem with this that people are saying is that you can't integrate telling story through Warcraft 4 with the events of World of Warcraft. They either are a continual universe or they're not, and we've seen that the events of Warcraft 1, 2, and 3 directly informed the first few expansions of World of Warcraft. So up until Cataclysm, I guess you could say, we were continuing the stories that were told in the end of Warcraft 3, and it was great for it. I think that built a very rich, diverse world with all the lore and fun that we're enjoying in it now. But I have a tinfoil hat theory.
Go on.
So, tinfoil hats on, people. Blizzard are going to release Warcraft 4, which will be a narrative set of events that will, completely redefine the world. That you'll start from a position where, Azeroth is as it currently appears. There's Northrend and there's Pandaria and there's the Broken Isles and Kulturas and all that. Kulturas and all that. They'll take that as the starting point. They'll tell a series of stories, an overarching narrative of Warcraft 4, the game, sort of complete here to there, beginning and end.
Mm-hmm.
Then they'll release the next expansion of World of Warcraft, which will be a Cataclysm style expansion. I think it'll be set a year after the events of the beginning of Warcraft 4, and where Warcraft 4 ended will be where the expansion picks up with a completely rebuilt World of Warcraft. So I think gone are things like the Azerite system, or at least it gets completely rebuilt. The talent trees could look different. The render, the game engine look different. I think a lot of new race models to be introduced. So like Blood Elves and Draenei and things like that getting a bit of attention in the same way we saw like Worgen females and stuff. I think the Azure Mistile and the Blood Elf starting zone, Silver Moon, completely redone, now fully integrated into the world. I think that, they could take a year, maybe even 2 years to build a brand new updated World of Warcraft off the back of the fact that the player base is playing Warcraft 4. That's my tinfoil hat. What do you think?
Okay. Sure. I can see definitely how you would want them to link together in terms of, hey, look, we're having another revamp of the map and revamp of the land you're in. And rather than do it in a way of like how they did it last time with an expansion within the same engine, why not build it from the ground up again, but set it at a different time? Like, I'd even go one further and say a completely different era, rather than just a year later. I'd rather go, you know what, we're going to have the WoW story as it is, but we're also going to have another story. And, that would be how I would want it to happen, so that it's a stupidly long time in the future so that it can't possibly interact with the current story, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. The only problem is, I think there is you end up arbitrarily moving on storylines in ways that the player base might not like. You end up, if you move it on, say, a decade, you end up with technology being very different. Does it suddenly turn WoW more steampunk? You risk upsetting people that like don't want their characters to suddenly be 10 years older in the roleplay community. Like, I think you can get away with saying a year has passed. I think people will be like, "Oh, that's cool. I'll write some backstory about what was happening." Especially if they allowed, and this would be a really cool idea, if they allowed you to bring over your characters from World of Warcraft into Warcraft 4. If the hero classes that you played were matching those of World of Warcraft, and just cosmetic things like name, gender, the hair color, etc. you chose, the transmog you're wearing, etc. If they allowed that, because all the data is in battle.net, they can just pull it from the Warcraft 4 interface. I think if they allowed you to continue playing your characters but in the Warcraft 4 story, then you could sell it to the player base easier. Now, what might be really interesting is to do a new MMO and say, look, World of Warcraft is going to be ticking over as it is. We'll do bug fixes and things like that, but ultimately the story there has gone as far as it goes. We're going to do Warcraft 4, and then we're going to bring out a new MMO like Legacy of Warcraft or something like that. And it's like a good leap of like 100 years on. And it's got different technology, it's got different races, the various different factions have changed. You could really mix things up. But then again, they risk scaring away new players and at the same time pissing off World of Warcraft, because people would rather see that continue.
Yeah,
I think it's an impossible thing to get your head around. But that's what makes me think, how are they going to do Warcraft 4 if they don't want it to mess at all with what's happening in World of Warcraft?
True.
So
yes.
So, folks, what do you think? If you're a WoW player, or even if you're just interested in the idea of games development, how do Blizzard do Warcraft 4? How does it affect World of Warcraft? How do they sort out the continuity? Do they do something completely different instead? Let us know on the Twitters, because that is where you can find the show. We're at TGCShow. We had a few people drop us a line over the festive period, didn't we, Robbie?
Yes.
It is in the inbox.
Yes. So Marie sent us a tweet about Christmas traditions. We sort of had a little touch on that before we left for the Christmas season. So Marie says, we often read during dinner, but special occasions like Christmas, Thanksgiving, and birthdays are times when we put books and devices aside, I grew up with the TV at meals and my mum reading as well, and the TV is definitely banned at meal times in my house.
Fair enough. That seems eminently sensible.
And it almost seems interpersonal. Gosh. And then we had a Cheryl message, and this is something we touched on earlier about Mythic Plus dungeons in WoW. Cheryl tweets us to say, a number of other podcasts have discussed that the new Mythic Plus system in this expansion, and believe it is actually more difficult with the change in the order of the affixes and the complexity of the dungeons.
Yeah, I think I agree with this. I think the big problem was that up until even late on in the beta, they were still running with this idea that you'd be able to choose your affixes, and then they scrapped it, and
they sort of have one overarching affix with 3 others.
And we're quite often seeing combinations that just render some Mythic Plus.
Some weeks are impossible. That we can't get more than one affix because the combination will just slaughter us with the DPS.
It's and then you get to the point where you can only complete the Mythic Plus with characters that are geared to get more than the rewards from the Mythic Plus, and suddenly they're not worth doing anymore. So it's a difficult one indeed. Thanks to everyone who wrote in. If they want to follow me, they can on Twitters at RZBG. Robbie, where can they find you?
You can find me at Robbie_Glow on Twitter.
Indeed. This was supposed to be a short form show. It's actually run quite long.
It's a normal show now.
It's a normal show now, which means there is one thing that remains for me to do, which is find the stamp, because for a moment there I'd lost it.
Oh, God.
Pass your geek cards over. There we are. Thank you. No, Robbie, that was a Christmas card, but thank you anyway. Ink up the stamp.
I try.
And there we are. For the first time of 2019, your geek cards have been stamped. This has been the Geek Card Show 117, and we will see you all next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
You've been listening to The Geek Card with your hosts, Razerbug and Robbie Glow. You can find The Geek Card wherever fine podcasts are found, and on the web at thegeekcard.podbean.com. The Geek Card is a proud member of the Voice of Geeks network, where you can find other amazing podcasts like Orange Lounge Radio, Starboard Power Coupling, and Girls Gone WoW. Find out more at www.vognetwork.com.